Welcome to Underworld UK, where Britain's darkest stories are brought to light. From the gritty streets of gangland London, Liverpool, Manchester and Birmingham, from Curtis Warren to the Kray twins to county lines and modern day true crime, we cover everything. Bringing you new videos every week. Subscribe so that you'll be notified when the next video is put out.
They called him Bang Bang for a reason. In a world where reputations are built on whispers, violence and survival, Manny Bang Bang Clark didn't just earn his name, he lived up to it. From unlicensed boxing rings hidden behind closed doors to standing shoulder to shoulder with some of Britain's most feared underworld figures, to surviving a brutal stabbing that should have killed him, this is the story of a man many have called the hardest man in Britain. Manny Clark made his name in the brutal world of unlicensed boxing. No rules, no protection, no easy way out, just fists and pride. He fought in underground shows like Fight Club, racking up nearly 50 fights against dangerous opponents who had just as much to prove as he did. But Manny wasn't just another fighter. He was fast, aggressive and known for a left hook that could end a fight instantly. A proper jawbreaker by his own admission. Outside the ring, he lived another life entirely. Working doors, running security, moving in circles that most people would never even see, let alone survive in. And it was in that world that he crossed paths with one of the most feared men Britain has ever produced, Lenny McLean. Known as the Governor, McLean had a reputation that went far beyond boxing. Thousands of fights, links to the criminal underworld, a presence that could silence a room instantly. When Manny brought him in to work security, it should have been simple. But when Lenny found out about Manny's fighting background, things changed. Because in that world, talk means nothing. You have to prove it. Manny was told to turn up to a gym the next day. No real explanation, just a quiet understanding that something was coming. He didn't want to go, but he knew he had no choice. If he didn't show up, he'd lose respect. And in that life, once respect goes, everything goes. So he walked into that gym, knowing full well what it might lead to. First, they put him in with a decent middleweight, 3 hard rounds, nothing unusual. But the real test came after. Lenny sent in a man nearly twice Manny's size, a giant, over 20 stone, a man built to hurt people. Manny, weighing just over 12 stone, had one advantage: speed. He moved, slipped and survived, just about. Then Lenny stepped in himself, and this was the real test. He looked Manny dead in the eye and told him straight, "I'm like a brick wall. You can't hurt me, but I'm gonna let you know I'm there." What followed wasn't a sparring session, it was a war. Manny landed shots, but it barely fazed him until one punch connected clean. Lenny's response, "Lovely. No one's hit me like that before." And then he turned it on. The pace increased, the pressure built, the bell rang, but it didn't matter. Lenny kept coming, blood pouring from Manny's nose, trading shots with one of the most feared men in the country. No way out, no backing down. Until finally it stopped. Not because Manny quit, but because he'd passed. Lenny didn't want to hurt him, he wanted to see if he had heart. And from that moment on, Manny had his respect. I've got a question for the viewers, so can you answer this honestly in the comments section? Would you step in the ring for an unlicensed fight with Lenny McLean or Manny Clark, both in the prime, for 30 grand?
Running a security firm, I had about 140 bouncers work for my company.
Right.
We run the Gas Club, Camden Palais, the Buzz Bar, Slap Harry's, Cairo Jacks. I run clubs up in Newcastle, in the big market. I have clubs as far down as Hastings in Sussex. We've done Ronnie Kray's funeral. We looked after Ronnie's body in English and Sons funeral parlour. So we was bodyguarding a dead man, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it was you, Dave, Lance, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, first of all, it was me, Big Gary Price, and my brother Lance. And funny enough, we were just sitting in there in the funeral parlour, and I thought, wow, it's getting boring. We're just sitting there for ages. So I shot over at Canning Town. I picked up a couple of birds I knew over there, and one of them was actually Shaney Redding, which was Albert Redding's daughter. Albert Redding got nicked with Ronnie Kray. Yeah. You know, he got 10 years with Ronnie.
Yeah.
Ronnie and Reggie. And so I said, you ain't going to believe this. I said, Shaney, I said, we're looking after Ronnie Kray's body. He said, I don't believe it. I said, come on, get in the car. And we used to sat in the office having a drink all night. You know.
But did people open up the coffin? And there's rumours that went on about all that.
The thing is, we did actually have a look, because my pal said, should we have a look? Right? And what happened? Lance was a really funny character. My brother Lance.
Lance really definitely had it.
But we were in the room, right? And we lifted the cover up. I said, God bless you, Ronnie, mate. And I just want to say hello, you know what I mean? As we lifted the lid up, Lance went, fuck this! And he ran out of the room. He said, he looks like Dracula. Right? Because he was laying there in a black tuxedo, black tie, and his face looked really pale and his lips looked red. Like, you know, where they'd done all the...
Like he could have just stuck his
And he looked like Count Dracula, you know what I mean? It was fucking funny. And Lance was, run out of the room, love me head off. And I went, right, anyway, good night, Ron, mate. Put the lid back on.
But Manny's life wasn't just defined by fights in the ring. Some of his toughest battles happened outside of it. At one point in his life, he was attacked in the street, outnumbered, outarmed, and completely on his own. What followed sounds less like real life and more like something out of a film. Blades, bats, chaos. He tried to talk his way out of it, told them they'd already won. It didn't matter. The first stab went deep into his ribs, then another and another, 6 times in total. A punctured lung, damage to his spleen, internal bleeding, injuries that should have ended his life right there on the pavement. But somehow he stayed on his feet, fighting back, refusing to drop. Even the attackers were shocked, calling him crazy before eventually walking away, leaving him bleeding out. He collapsed at a stranger's door and asked for help. Ambulance called, rushed to hospital, and then he died. Twice, brought back both times on the operating table. Over 200 stitches, internal damage that would have finished most men. Doctors told him it'd be in recovery for months. He was back on his feet far sooner. That was Manny Clark, a man who genuinely believed nothing could kill him, and somehow he kept proving it. His life also brushed up against some of the most infamous names in British crime. He wasn't just around that world, he was part of it, trusted within it. At one point he was even chosen to stand guard over the coffin of Ronnie Kray, one half of the most notorious criminal duo Britain has ever seen. That alone tells you everything about the level he was operating on, because roles like that aren't given, they're earned. But for all the violence, the chaos, the near-death moments, there was another side to that life too. Stories of wild parties, luxury cars lined up along the A27, Bentleys, Rolls Royces, a different kind of excess. Nights that blurred into mornings and carried on into the next day. A world where money flowed, rules didn't exist, and consequences always came later. It was a life lived fast, and like most lives lived that way, it came with a cost. Friends lost, time spent behind bars, moments that looking back meant more than they seemed at the time. Even into his later years, Manny never truly stepped away from that identity, still fighting, still training, still talking about stepping back into the ring, even into his 60s, because for men like Manny Clark, this isn't just something they did, it's who they are. From unlicensed fights, to Underworld Connections, to surviving things most people wouldn't last seconds in, Manny Bang Bang Clark built a reputation the hard way, through pain, through violence, through survival. And whether you believe the title or not, there aren't many men who could live that life and still be here to tell the story.